Yo, what's up, everybody? Rage Cage 20 here, and I'm on a bit of a Mr. B kick tonight. So I was thinking I'd do one more. Now, normally I would go back down, but I only doing one more tonight. The next one was, I think, Russia's most feared criminal whatnot, which sounds fun. But I was like, I'm looking for something maybe a little bit more punch to it. Now, I don't know what surprises could be in that story. It could have more punch than this story. I do not know. But this young, what looks like teen, early 20s-year-old girl in a room being interrogated by police with the name "The World's Worst Babysitter." That sounded like that's the one you end the night on, right? That sounded but much more like the one than Criminals of Russia. So now, of course, that could have nothing to do with Russia. And it could be some crazy zany story. I don't know. But this one sounded like the one. So that's what we are doing here today. Now, these stories are starting to get a little bit expensive. Oh, my gigabytes. So I might have to start releasing these a little bit more rapidly, sooner. Maybe start releasing like 2 or 3 a week. On top of other videos. Not having like replacing other videos. Because I have a lot of these saved up. But of course, if that's already happened, by this episode, you already knew that. But just, time lapse, this is when I started having the idea. I think it's always cool to people be like, oh, this is when he started thinking about it. That's why I've been seeing more coming out, it's whatever. Plus, there's also Ouija Mac, who, if you watch my reaction videos, you know I'm quite a big fan of Ouija Mac. I saw on Spotify, it popped up that he made a Mr. Ballen story, or a Mr. Ballen song. So I gotta check that out. But of course, you probably already know that, because that probably came out like months ago. months and months ago by the time you check this out. But this is when I had the thought. Or at least a couple episodes ago I had the thought, but still. I just shared it in this one. So I was like, it could go in one of two ways. I think either Ouija, I'll say this in the video itself, but this is when I had the thought again. Time lapse. Ouija Mac's either dissing him, saying like, oh, you don't talk about actual wicked shit, I talk about wicked shit. But I don't think that Ouija Mac would do that, because he makes tons of shorts and videos and stuff about, hey, why you coming at me, why you on my nuts. So unless Mr. B came at Ouija Mac for any reason, which I don't even think Mr. B would even know who the fuck Ouija Mac is, because most people don't. He's awesome, but not that well known. Then I don't think that's what it is. So I think it's an honor to Mr. Ballen. I watch tons of Mr. Ballen. I've watched tons of Ouija Mac videos. I gotta get on that video. Probably will do it tomorrow. So you'll see it way before you see this. So I already did. You should go check it out. But I just wanted to point that out. Say that. I think that's really, really fucking cool. If that's an homage to Mr. B, I think that's the shit. So today we're gonna find out what the world's worst babysitter did. I'm sure it's going to be tragic and crazy. Like, babies might have died or almost died in this story. So, or at least infants, young kids, or something. So, let's find out what qualifies as the worst babysitter.
In 1999, a father arrived at a train station to pick up his teenage daughter from school. But when the train she was supposed to be on arrived at the station, she didn't get off. And so the father just sat in the parking lot, assuming his daughter must be late and she'll be on the next train. But as more and more trains came into the station, none of them were carrying his daughter. And so eventually, this father just left the parking lot and headed back home, believing his daughter must have found another way home. Unfortunately, though, that was not the case. It would turn out his daughter had made a fateful decision that day that would soon turn her and her family's lives into a nightmare. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please soak the like button's underpants and then place them in the freezer. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications.
I thought it was going to be like soak it in hot sauce or whatever. So when they put it on, they burn their privates or something like that. That sounds pretty crazy. That sounds pretty wicked. But also, not just thinking like, oh, it's just cold because it's in the drawer or whatever, and then you put it on, it's like freezing your giblets. Yeah. Side story. Quick side story, I promise, because it's a 30-minute and I don't want to be here too long. But my friend used to do that to his girlfriend back in high school and whatnot. He would go to the bathroom, and this is she do it to him too. She got it back or whatnot. But he would go to the bathroom, like completely ice his hands with like super cold water, and they go in, like, touch parts on her body and whatnot. She would do the same. She would grab his junk and stuff with freezing hands. There's a little joke they played on each other. That's just what that reminded me of. Genitalia doesn't like really cold. If you didn't know this by now, I'm a bit. Now you know. I'd be a little surprised, but hey, now you know. So yeah, might be a funny practical joke. Probably don't do that, because they'll probably do it back to you. It ain't fun.
So you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
And by the way, just because it's 2023 and this is how the world is, it was consensual touching. It wasn't like a groping or in inappropriate ways. Like, they were at that stage of the relationship and they just did that anyways. Gotta put that out there, because people these days are fucking sensitive. Like, oh, he was a rapist or something. No. Rachel Starr. Why does that sound familiar? Maybe I've heard this one before. I don't think so, but maybe.
In 1998, the Barber family was living a charmed life. Michael and Elizabeth had been happily married for 20 years, and they had 3 beautiful daughters who ranged in age from 9 to 15, and they were all thriving. The family lived in a very modest, plain-looking home in Melbourne, Australia, but...
It's always Australia, man. Not always, but a lot of the ones recently I've been watching have been in Australia.
The second you stepped foot inside of that home, you would see it was bursting with life. The sounds of kids laughing and playing, and of Michael and Elizabeth happily chatting away, filled every room. Now, the Barbers' lives were not perfect by any means. In fact, they struggled financially and lived basically paycheck to paycheck. However, they didn't let their financial struggles define them. Instead, Michael and Elizabeth put a lot of stock in another aspect of their lives that they were all undeniably rich in, and that was in creativity. Michael was a toy maker and a designer, and Elizabeth worked in children's literature. And each of the 3 Barber children were beginning to cultivate their own unique creative gifts. At 9 years old, Heather, who was the youngest, had developed a lovely singing voice. Ashley Rose, who was the middle child at 11 years old, had learned to play the flute. But the Barber's oldest daughter, 15-year-old...
Is this like at a later date or something? Because she don't look 11.
Rachel was really the star of...
Oh, there she is. Is that the crazy one? She looks like she might be the crazy one. It is Rachel Starr, Rachel Barber.
Family. In fact, they called her that, Rachel Starr. Rachel...
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Let me go back here. I missed the important part. My bad. I was talking.
Rachel was really the star of the family. In fact, they called her that, Rachel Starr.
Got it.
Rachel was an extremely talented dancer. She was so graceful and stylish that even when she was just walking around, it almost looked like she was dancing. Rachel was also very beautiful, with big emerald green eyes and fair skin, and she had this effortless charisma that just drew people to her. From the outside, Rachel really did look like the kid who had everything going for her. But, like the rest of us, Rachel had her own struggles. Like, she was not a natural student. No matter how hard she tried, math and science just seemed impossible to her. And Rachel had a number of acute fears that really made certain aspects of her life very challenging. She was deathly afraid of the dark. She was afraid of talking to strangers. She was afraid of navigating the public transportation system on her own. And even just the thought of going into a store by herself filled her with immense dread.
I mean, this is all pretty normal stuff. Like, first off, I'm a little bit afraid of the dark myself. I'm not actually. I was when I was younger. Because it's like it was always the thing. Like, I'm not afraid of the dark itself, of it just being dark. I'm afraid of what's hiding in the dark. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. So I always had to sleep with a nightlight or whatnot. But I mean, I think I got over that when I was sometime in high school. I don't remember when. Sometime in high school, I imagine, like early high school, whatnot. Yeah, I think I stopped using a nightlight when I got my own room. I don't remember when that was. I used to have from my brother, bunk beds and shit. Fear of talking to strangers. Yeah, people are fucking crazy. If you watch any of these Mr. Beast stories, I'm sure you'd be afraid of talking to strangers as well. Sounds logical. Public transportation, like, yeah, just never go to New York before and go to the metro system and try to figure out how that shit works, you'd have a fear of public transportation, trying to figure out how public transportation works as well, and going to a store and stuff by yourself. I mean, that one's pretty easy to grow out of, but I mean that my brother has anxiety, so he doesn't like to go shopping when there's a lot of people because he gets anxious around a lot of crowds. So that's also not that odd of a fear to have, and also there's workarounds to that. So like, all of those things seem pretty not life destroying or crippling. So I'm sure there's more, but like all those are easy solutions and easy fixes. So I don't know.
As a result of having these fears, Rachel was actually very dependent on her parents. Her mother, Elizabeth, would jokingly say that Rachel was 15, going on 18, going on 12. Eventually, when Rachel's anxieties and fears, combined with her struggles with traditional schoolwork, put her into a bit of a depression, her parents decided they needed to step in and take action. They wanted their Rachel...
I mean, you probably should have done that a while ago, but sure, okay.
...star to be happy. They wanted to encourage her and nurture her strengths. And the thing that they knew she loved the most and was the best at was dance. So in September of 1998, Michael and Elizabeth allowed Rachel to drop out of her traditional school and transfer to a full-time dance school in Richmond, which was an inner-city suburb of Melbourne located...
I mean, if you're going to pursue dancing as a career, and that's like all you're going to do for the rest of your life until you can't anymore because, getting old. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I don't know if I'd say, like, it depends. How old she was? She was 16 or something, you said? I mean, that's close to graduation. That's like 2 years, it's approximately 2 years off. Like, dropping out to do dancing at that point, that's not that horrible of an idea, actually.
About 20 minutes away from the barber's house. And once Rachel was enrolled in this new dance school, she blossomed. She made loads of new friends. She started modeling, which was something she was very proud of. And she met a boy, Manny, who she absolutely adored. But as well as things seemed to be going for Rachel at her new school, she would soon make a fateful decision that would have absolutely catastrophic effects. On Monday, March 1st of 1999, so 5 months after Rachel had transferred to this new dance
she does look like the person who's in the interrogation with the... What'd you do, Rachel?
School. Rachel and her father, Michael, like every other morning, left the Barber household, climbed into Michael's car, and began driving to Wattle Park, which was a train station closest to their house. From Wattle Park, Rachel would catch a train that would take her to the Richmond station, and then she would get off. She would meet up with a friend, they would have breakfast, and they would walk the rest of the way to their dance school. When Michael pulled into the parking lot at Wattle Park and parked the car, and Rachel was getting her stuff to climb out of the vehicle to head up to the train, he stopped his daughter and said, "Hey, remember, I'll be back here at 6:15 tonight to pick you up." And Rachel looked at him, she smiled and said, "Okay," and then she hopped out of the car and she pranced her way over to the station. Michael watched his daughter just long enough to see her climb the steps and disappear, at which point he put his car back in drive, he left the lot, and he headed back home. That evening, Michael returned to Wattle Park. But at 6:15 p.m., when the train came rolling into the station, Rachel was not on board. Michael assumed his daughter must have been running late and so missed the train she would always take, and so he just sat in the parking lot and waited for the next train to come into the station. And a few minutes later, when it pulled into the station, Rachel was not on that train either. And so Michael, he was starting to get worried because he's looking outside, it's getting dark, he knows his daughter hates being out in the dark, she's afraid of being alone, and he's wondering, what's going on with her, but he keeps telling himself that she's bound to show up any minute.
And this is late 90s, 99, so the cell phone technology wasn't there yet. If there was cell phones at this point, it was tiny little flip phone stuff, so yeah, it's a good chance she ain't got one.
And so Michael just sat in this parking lot and watched train after train after train come through the station, and Rachel wasn't on any of them. Now, Michael didn't have a cell phone, and neither did Rachel, so he couldn't just call her to see where she was. But finally, after a few more trains came through and none of them contained his daughter, he left the parking lot but went to his parents' house, which was much closer than his own home, and he rushed inside and he grabbed their phone and he called back to his home, and when his wife, Elizabeth, Rachel's mom, picked up the phone, he immediately asked her, "Hey, is Rachel home? Did she get a ride home from one of her friends?" And Elizabeth would tell Michael, no, she's not here, and she hasn't called. This was the moment when Michael and Elizabeth instinctively knew something had to be wrong. Rachel was on time for everything, and if she was late, she would always call ahead or call afterwards and at least give some explanation. But to just go silent and not show up, that was not in character. And again, because it was...
Was someone babysitting Rachel? Because I assumed Rachel was the babysitter. This story's all falling apart. I don't understand what's going on.
Pitch black outside, and they knew she was probably alone. That was a situation they knew Rachel would never want to be in because it would have terrified her. Right. And so Michael tells Elizabeth he's going to come home as fast as he can. They hang up, and then while Elizabeth is waiting for her husband to return, she picked the phone right back up and she dialed Manny's number. That's Rachel's boyfriend.
I would have called the police too. But that's also not a bad choice.
And she figured maybe Rachel was with Manny, or at the very least, maybe she checked in with Manny because most nights Rachel and Manny spoke on the phone. But when Manny picked up the phone, he would tell Elizabeth that he hasn't seen Rachel since earlier in the day, and she has not called him, which to him was odd. When Elizabeth asked Manny, what was my daughter doing when you were with her last? Manny would say, oh, we went out to a shopping mall near the school in Richmond, and we went to the shoe store, and Rachel actually walked up to a very particular set of shoes. They were these big platform blue chunky shoes, and she said that she was going to buy them the next day, and she was really excited about it. And Elizabeth, as she's hearing this, she knew exactly the shoes that Manny was describing because just the day before, Rachel had taken her mom, Elizabeth, to the shoe store and pleaded with her to get those blue chunky platform shoes. Right. But when Elizabeth had looked at the price tag, they were $100. And
oh shit, man! Especially back in the 90s. No. Like that's expensive. Expensive for that kind of shoe. $66. I mean, still.
So they were too expensive. And so as Elizabeth is hearing Manny say that her daughter is talking about how she's going to buy these shoes the next day, Elizabeth is thinking, with what money? Rachel has no money. How could she possibly afford those shoes? And so she asked Manny, did Rachel say how she planned on affording those blue shoes?
Well, here comes.
And Manny would say, actually, yeah. She told me that she had this secret job, but she wouldn't give me any more details about it.
So she's secretly being a babysitter behind the scenes. The plot thickens.
Got it. And she said that with the money from this secret job, she'd be...
I mean, of course, all of this could be just Manny lying. But... because he seems to know a lot of information, but... he could be behind it. But it seems a little too obvious. And I kind of want there to be some crazy babysitting shit she did. And it seems like she's in the police station, so seems like that might be the answer.
Be able to buy these.
Because it seems like she's alive and not missing, technically. But
Manny would tell Elizabeth that Rachel really stressed that this secret job was nothing to worry about. It was nothing immoral. But as Elizabeth is listening to Manny...
What was she implying there? Was she implying about underage work in the corner? Because I would hope that would never be the case. Fucking A.
Tell her this. All her alarm bells,
especially since she, doesn't like strangers. That would be a hard thing to do if you're afraid of talking to strangers.
Are going off. She could not fathom any job that would require a 15-year-old girl to go out by herself at night doing...
I thought she was 16. That's even younger.
Something that was secret and give absolutely no information to her family. Every possibility just seemed bad. After hanging up the phone with Manny, Elizabeth began frantically calling all of Rachel's friends.
How about the police? It's a simple 3-digit number. Anyways.
And acquaintances and different locations around town that she knew her daughter would frequent, but nobody had any information about where Rachel was. A little while later, Michael finally pulled into the driveway, and when he went inside, he talked to his wife briefly, but he could tell they had no new information. Their daughter was still not home. This was becoming a crisis. And so very quickly, Michael just left the house, got right back into his car, and he drove to the police station.
Thank you. Fucking A. I was like, at what point How long is it going to take them to get the police involved, man? This is their job. This is what they're supposed to do, and they can probably do it faster than you can. Fucking A, man.
But when he got to the police station, the police didn't really offer the response that he was hoping for. From the police's perspective, it sounded like a teenage girl has been missing for a few hours, and so in their mind, they're thinking, one, that's not an emergency yet, and two, she probably just kind of ran off. Teenagers do that, they come back the next day, it's normal.
Yeah, but they can get seriously hurt or injured in that running off period, my man. And that's usually teenagers that are not happy. She seems to be happy. Now, of course, you can't always take a parent's word on that, but like, still, why do police always seem to be inconvenienced at doing the job they get paid to do? I don't know. Like, oh, it's only been a few hours. Not like she can get kidnapped, murdered, raped, or killed by that point, and every minute could be vital. Fuck it. She'll show up. Fucking police officers, man. Are you fucking kidding me? Should take every single situation as super fucking serious, just in case it is. And if it's not, no big deal.
And so despite Michael's pleas to the police that no, this is different, my daughter would never do that, she would never run away, this is totally out of character, despite all those pleas, the police said, look, Michael, just go home, wait, your daughter will be home soon.
No, dog, no. That's that sounds something go down. That sounds like it sounds like Rachel gonna do something bad, but if something go down, I feel like there's a lawsuit for negligence going on in there. That's all I'm saying.
And if for some reason in the next few days she does not...
Next few days? Motherfucker!
...not come back home, you come back and you tell us. And so Michael, now feeling totally devastated...
Now you gotta take matters into your own hands. You gotta go look. Hey, you gotta go do the job that the police supposed to be fucking doing.
And terrified for his daughter's safety, finally did just leave the police station and he headed back home. And then he and his wife and his two other daughters had a terrible, restless night's sleep, wondering what was going on with Rachel. And then finally, when the sun came up the next morning, Michael and Elizabeth rushed out of their bedroom and headed...
Damn. Elizabeth didn't look like that in the other pictures. Yeah, I could see the resemblance to Rachel and Elizabeth's face there.
...into the kitchen, hoping, praying that Rachel would just magically be in their house again. But when they went into the kitchen, Rachel wasn't there. She had not come
searching,
home.
man.
However, pretty early on this second day of Rachel's disappearance, Michael and Elizabeth would learn something new. Manny would get in touch with Michael and Elizabeth, and he would tell them that he remembered something Rachel had said during their final conversation the day before.
Man, you're starting to look a little sus, buddy. But it's a little too obvious. Now, usually in these stories, the person who's trying to be the most helpful is the culprit. But this feels a little different. It feels a little bit different. And it feels a little too obvious, because there's no other suspects potential at the moment besides Manny. And Mr. B doesn't usually point out, like, yep, it's this person. Keep looking at him. It's them. He usually plays it low, so I think Manny's in the clear on this one so far, giving him the pass.
She had told Manny that he had nothing to worry about with regards to this secret job because it wasn't immoral, it was totally safe. And Manny said, Rachel said there was an old female friend who was going to be there at this job site in some way participating that would keep her safe. And so Michael and Elizabeth have no idea what to make of this old female friend, but in a way it was kind of a relief because they know their daughter is basically terrified to be alone. And so at least knowing wherever she was with this old friend, that made them feel good. But the parents' positivity about this new development quickly faded when they began calling around to all of Rachel's friends, both new and old, female.
And those old pictures, man, everyone's got red eye.
And otherwise, and none of them were...
At least them all looked like demons or something. Just The devil's coming alive.
Missing. Everybody was where they were supposed to be, and nobody knew anything about what happened to Rachel. The only intel the parents got from this round of calling all of her friends was that several of her friends said that the day before, the day Rachel disappeared, they had walked with Rachel back to the train station after school. And in fact, one of the friends told Michael and Elizabeth that they offered Rachel a ride home so that she wouldn't have to ride the train back home, but Rachel had turned it down, saying her father was going to be meeting her on the other end at Wattle Park at 6:15 p.m. The Barbers didn't know what to make of this.
I mean, that's both nice but also concerning, because it sounds like she intended to. So did she get abducted?
Did Rachel believe at the time that she could go do this secret job and still be back in time to meet her father at 6:15 at Wattle Park? Or did she lie to the friend who was offering the ride and make up the story that she planned on seeing her father when in reality?
I gotta say, man, like, whatever happens with this whole babysitting thing, because there's still a lot of time on the clock. 2 times at least in 2 pictures, the first picture and in this one, look at the eyes, the window of the soul. There's something not right in those eyes. There's something dark in those eyes. Like, something's not right with the way there's something evil in those eyes. I can feel it. I can see it. There's something not right about those eyes. I thought in the first picture too, and I'm thinking in this one here. There's some demons in there. Let's just put that.
She planned on ditching her father and going and doing this secret job for the night. But regardless of which of these things were true, the parents just still could not understand why by now, 24 hours later, their daughter still had not called to check in. Michael and Elizabeth found themselves wondering if they really knew their Rachel Starr as well as they thought they did. You know, maybe she had actually run away like the police suggested. The parents were totally distraught, they were totally anxious and terrified, and so with nothing else to do, over the next several days, they just continued to go out and look everywhere and talk to everyone to try to find where their daughter.
Mom, I mean, I'm sure this isn't a situation, you know, when this is all going down, so I'm sure neither of them are very happy, but like, your mom was got a little bit of the demon in her eyes.
There was, but everything they looked into turned into a dead end. Then, finally, on Monday, March 8th, so exactly 1 week since
a whole week went by. Oh no.
Rachel had disappeared, Michael and Elizabeth got a new lead. A girl named Allison, who had gone to a dance class with Rachel before Rachel had transferred schools, had overheard her younger sister talking about the Rachel Barber disappearance and how nobody had seen or heard from Rachel since 5.
So it just makes me mad, dude. I know there's some really good police officers out there. Okay, I get that. But, like, it sounds like it's a 50-50 or maybe even, like, slightly more skewed towards the bad cops than good cops. Being honest with you. But it's just like, if this person actually is missing and it's not a hoax, you let days go by. You know how quickly you can lose the trail like that? I'm just fucking disappointed, man. Police officers, man. Though I'm pretty sure Rachel's... even if Rachel's in the wrong in this story and she did something fucked up, you should have been on top of that, too. Like, someone else could have got injured worse, or some crazier could have gone down because of your fucking negligence. Cops out there, if there's any cop that watches this, you probably don't like me. But like, please be that one good cop. Like, don't take anything as like, don't brush anything on the table because it could be serious. Like, do your job, please. Okay. Anyways.
4:45 p.m. the previous Monday. Allison, who had not heard about Rachel's disappearance until this very moment, knew immediately she had to go forward and talk to police because she actually saw Rachel on the night she disappeared, a full hour after her last known sighting. At 6:40 p.m. on the night Rachel disappeared, Allison was on the train car headed to Praron, which is a suburb located southeast of where Rachel lived. And when this train that Allison was on pulled into the Richmond station and the doors opened up, Allison watched as Rachel, along with this other girl who Allison didn't recognize, walked on board and then took seats right next to each other on the other end of the train away from Allison. Now, from Allison's perspective, immediately it was clear they were friends. They were laughing and joking together and just kind of in their own world. And so Allison didn't want to be rude, so she stopped staring at them, and they continued riding the train until they got to the Praron station, at which point Allison got up to leave the train. But as she did, she saw Rachel and this mystery girl. They also had stood up and they were making their way out of the door. And as they were leaving, Rachel actually would look up and see Allison, and they would both smile and wave at each other. But that was it. And then Allison would watch as Rachel and her friend would leave ahead of her, and they would walk down the platform. And from Allison's perspective, it seemed obvious that Rachel and this girl were friends, and whatever they were going to go do, they were choosing to go do, and they were going to do together.
Right.
When Michael and Elizabeth heard about this sighting of their daughter on the train and this mystery girl, on the one hand, it was kind of reassuring because it meant that Rachel was with this friend, potentially the old female friend that Rachel mentioned to Manny. Right. And so whatever she was doing, at least she was not alone. But on the other hand, it begged the question of what role did this mystery person play in wherever Rachel was now? Had Rachel and this mystery girl gone to do this secret job together and then something happened to them? Or had this mystery girl been Rachel's accomplice and they had run off together like the police thought? Whatever the case was, the Barbers and the police at this point, who were looking much more seriously into the Barber case by now, they knew the next step was identifying this mystery girl. A couple of days later, on Thursday, March 11th, the police called in an artist to create a sketch of this mystery girl that Allison had seen on the train. Allison would describe this mystery girl as being older than Rachel, being heavier than Rachel.
That's a pretty bad sketch, man.
And very plain. That day, the police also ordered a trace on all of the phone calls going into the Barber residence on the day.
Like, I've seen some, like, sketches that, like, you know, police sketchers do of depictions and stuff like that, and they actually look pretty lifelike, pretty real. It looks like it came out of a fucking comic strip. Who the fuck you got sketching comics of people? You should probably hire someone else.
Before she went missing, because they figured that if Rachel and this mystery girl were in cahoots on some sort of secret thing together, they likely communicated the day before. And when the phone call trace came back, there was one phone number in particular that stood out to police. There was a private phone number that called the Barber household twice on the day before Rachel disappeared. Once at 5:24 p.m., and that call lasted about 15 minutes. And then shortly after that call ended, the private number called back, and then there was another conversation that lasted about 30 minutes. It would take police another 24 hours, but eventually they would figure out who this private caller was. It was a 20-year-old woman named Caroline Robertson, who very closely resembled the police sketch of the mystery girl.
No, it doesn't. You got the hair length. You got maybe a little bit of the design of the eyebrows. That's fucking it. Like, that's a shitty fucking sketch, dude.
That Allison had seen on the train, and it just so happened that Caroline Robertson lived very close to the Praron train station where Allison saw the mystery girl and Rachel get off. Additionally, Caroline was Rachel's old babysitter and was very close with the Barber family.
Uh-oh. Why? She doesn't need babysitting at that point. So they babysitting together?
And so it seemed very likely that Caroline was both the mystery girl on the train and the old female friend that Rachel had mentioned to Manny when she told him about this secret job. This new information was a huge relief. From Michael and Elizabeth's perspective and the police's perspective, it now seemed very likely that Rachel and Caroline had just snuck off together and were now probably hiding out at Caroline's apartment near the Praron train station. And so, believing they could put an end to this missing teenager drama that night, the police hopped in their cars and they drove over to Caroline's apartment. But when they got there at 5:25 p.m., they very quickly realized that things were not as they seemed. Police walked up to Caroline's front door and they knocked and began yelling out for Caroline and Rachel to come outside, but nobody yelled back and nobody opened the door. When they tried the handle, they found it was locked, so they got in touch with the property's real estate agent, who came out and gave them a set of spare keys, and when the police tried those keys, they found they still could not open the door because the door had been locked from the inside with a special latch. And
so that means either someone's in there or they left, like locked it, latched it, and left out like a window or something.
So the police began walking around the perimeter of the building looking for another way inside. And as they're walking, one of the officers looks up and sees a second floor window of the apartment is open. And it's open enough that clearly a person could slip inside. And so the police contacted the fire department, who showed up very quickly, and they put a ladder up against the side of the apartment that went up to that open window, and then a police officer began climbing up. And when he got up to the window and could look inside, he saw he was looking into a bedroom. And at first, it looked totally ordinary until he noticed there was a body lying face down at the foot of the bed on the ground. It was Caroline. The officer on the ladder immediately...
Whew! It's not Rachel's. Caroline might be dead.
He turned around and yelled for backup, and then he and other officers poured into the apartment, and before long, Caroline, who did actually still have a pulse, but she was totally unconscious and not responding, she was being rushed to the hospital. And while that was happening, the remainder of the officers who were on site, they all went into the apartment to try to find Rachel. And so as they're searching this apartment, which was totally messy, there was things everywhere, there were boxes everywhere.
So, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to continue to harp on police force and law enforcement and whatnot. Could you imagine maybe a different outcome if the police would have found this number and linked it to this and arrived at this location a fucking week ago? Just thought. Just a thought.
It almost looked like Caroline had been packing her apartment to move, potentially, when something happened to her, causing her to fall unconscious inside of her bedroom. And so the police searched this apartment top to bottom, and they did not find Rachel. In fact, there was no trace of Rachel anywhere, except they did find a bag of clothes that looked like they were Rachel's size, not Caroline's size, but it wasn't clear if those were actually Rachel's clothes. Wow. And so the police just kind of walked around the apartment, gathering up anything that seemed suspicious, like they found rubber gloves and hair dye, they found some bank receipts and some notebooks.
That definitely sounds like fleeing scene materials. Like rubber gloves to prevent fingerprints, or for hair dye to change your hair color and appearance.
Some strange writing in them, and they just hoped that some of this stuff might lead to Rachel. Right. Back at the hospital, Caroline had regained consciousness, and even though she was very disoriented and seemed kind of out of it, the medical staff allowed the police to come in right away and start asking questions because they knew time was of the essence.
Yeah, you gotta make up some time you fucking lost, you dumb fucks.
With Rachel.
Oh, I'm so mad at the police, man, all the time.
Had to find her. And so the officers came into Caroline's room and they sat down, and the first question they asked her was, "Do you know where Rachel Barber is?" And Caroline just stood there kind of stunned for a second and then just said, "Yes." Over the next few months, as Caroline's memory came back into focus, she would...
Next few months? Motherfucker, what?
Piece together one of the most unbelievable stories that police in Melbourne had ever heard. The following is a reconstruction of that story.
We have, what, 8 minutes? Damn, dog. What the fuck? Was she ever found? It looks like she was found. Looks like she was brought in, so...
Based both on Caroline's testimony and on what police were able to actually fact check. Back on Sunday, February 28th, 1999, so the day before Rachel vanished, Caroline called Rachel and offered her a job. Caroline told Rachel that she was working on this psychology study and she needed participants. However, the study was highly confidential, so if Rachel did want to be a part of it, she wouldn't be able to tell anyone what she was doing. However, the study was quite lucrative for Rachel, and it really didn't require much of Rachel. All Rachel had to do was meet Caroline the following day after school was over at the Richmond train station, and then the two of them would ride the train to Prahran. They would get off, make their way to Caroline's apartment, and there they would conduct this psychological study, and when it was over, Caroline would pay Rachel $100 and the cost of transportation.
Oh, sweet. And suspiciously, the video was set. My bad, I wasn't paying attention. Also, the cost of the shoes.
So Rachel, she was thrilled at the idea because she wanted those beautiful blue shoes, and so she said yes. So the next day, Monday, March 1st, Rachel wrapped up school. She made her way to the Richmond train station. She connected with Caroline. They hopped on board the train. They made their way to Prahran with Allison spotting them on the train as they went. And then when they got off the train at Prahran, Caroline and Rachel would make their way to a nearby pizza shop and get a pizza and some beer. And then they would walk.
Oh, it's Australia. I was like, she's 15. I still think that the legal drinking age in Australia, isn't that still around 16 to 18? Isn't 15 still young, or
the rest of the way to Caroline's apartment? Once they were inside the apartment, Caroline led them upstairs to her bedroom. And
also, this really sounds like she's trying some psychological experiment on her already kind of battling on and off with depression, fears, and phobias and stuff like that. It sounds like she may have snapped and did something potentially horrible to Caroline, because Caroline is the babysitter, so the world's worst babysitter, and then something happens between the two of them. I am looking up the legal age in Mexico is the first thing that popped up. In Australia, not Austria, Australia. You must be 18 or older to buy alcohol or drink alcohol in a licensed venue. She's 15. Anyways,
both sat down on the floor at the foot of the bed and began eating their pizza and having some beer and just laughing and exchanging some stories. And then after their dinner was over, Caroline told Rachel it was time to start the study, and it began with a guided meditation. Sitting next to Rachel, Caroline told her to stay calm, think happy thoughts, close your eyes, and just begin to breathe in nice and slow, breathe out nice and slow, and just feel yourself breathing in and out. And so Rachel did as she was told and began breathing in and out and being very calm. And Caroline, at this point, she stood up and began kind of pacing around the room, watching Rachel periodically and reminding her to think happy thoughts and stay calm and keep just listening to herself breathe in and breathe out. And then at some point, Caroline just stopped and stood right in front of Rachel and just stared at her really intently. And at some point, Caroline was confident that the drugs she had laced in the pizza that she had given Rachel were starting to take an effect.
Okay, I thought she was going to chloroform or something, but no, the other method. I knew she was doing something. She was up to something. Like, just breathe and think happy thoughts, close your eyes, you know. So it's not Rachel that did something horrible. Potentially. She might have did something to break out, but who knows.
It looked like Rachel was starting to doze off. And so at that point, Caroline walked around behind Rachel, who still had her eyes closed. She's still doing the study. And Caroline pulled out a telephone cord. She wrapped it around Rachel's neck, and she pulled it as tight as she could. Immediately, Rachel came out of her trance, and she reached up and began trying to pull the cord off of her neck. But Caroline was easily 50 pounds heavier than Rachel and easily was able to maintain control over.
His telephone wire is very stretchy and it has the natural curl to it. I feel like you could get a finger in there and pull it, even against someone pulling against you. I feel like you probably have to be stronger, I guess. I feel like that one's easier to like get off of your neck, so you're not being. It's still like tight and hurt, but like not actually suffocating you. I don't know.
over Rachel. And so Rachel is squirming and fighting and scratching and doing everything she can to try to get this cord off, but she can't. And eventually the fight just leaves her body and she goes still. Caroline would maintain tension on that cord to ensure Rachel was dead, but then eventually she would release the tension on the cord, at which point she would drag Rachel's body into a nearby closet and she would shut the door. 2 days later, Caroline would open that closet up and she would drag Rachel's body back out of the closet with the cord still wrapped around her neck, and she would roll Rachel's body up in a carpet and then stuff her inside of a large army duffel bag that Caroline had purchased for this exact reason, for disposing Rachel's body. And then she called a taxi who came to her.
Why would you want to kill her? You just felt like killing someone? Is that your psychological experiment? You want to see what it feels like to murder someone? What?
Her apartment, and she lugged Rachel's body still inside of this bag and dumped it in the taxi, and then she and Rachel's body and the taxi driver.
Oh, that's not. First off, that's not smart. That's witness, man. Like, yeah, I brought a really big, heavy bag into my taxi. That's a witness, man.
Drove about an hour north to rural Kilmore, where Caroline's father had a vacation
Ironically named
home, and there she would bury Rachel's body in a shallow grave next to one of her childhood pets. When Caroline had been rushed to the hospital because she was found unconscious in her bedroom by police,
she tried to kill herself.
The assumption was she and probably Rachel had been attacked, and that was why Caroline was unconscious. But what really happened is Caroline was in her apartment and she saw the police show up, and it made her so stressed that it triggered a seizure, and that was why she passed out in her bedroom. When she came to in the hospital and people began asking her what happened, she would say that Rachel's death was an accident. However, months later, after investigators had gone through all of the evidence they had collected from Caroline's apartment, they discovered Rachel's death was anything but accidental.
Yeah, again, changing the appearance and packing and leaving. Like I said, escape gear. I thought it was for Rachel, but turns out it wasn't.
According to the notebooks they found all over Caroline's apartment, which were basically Caroline's journals, Caroline hated herself. She totally
It feels like it.
Loathed her physical image.
She wasn't that bad looking, man. Guys, there's a lot of things you can do, man. Like, first off, the most drastic is there's reconstructive surgeries and stuff. But like, I don't agree with that fat chubby cheek. Come on, man. There's makeup. We can go to places and get some fancy ass makeovers. Obese. What? Hate reports. Hate handwriting. Headaches. Vomit. Big nose. Obese. Eat too much. No life. Ugly. Yeah, nice apartment. That ain't no life, dog. There's makeup and makeovers and people professionals. You can get some sick ass hairdos. You can go work out at the fucking gym. Like, there's a lot you can do to change physical appearance. Like, it's as Ron White had once said. You can fix ugly all fucking day. There's so much stuff you can do to fix ugly. You can't fix stupid. But it doesn't sound like she was. I mean, I don't know. She's crazy. I don't know about stupid. But there's so much you can do to fix that, guys. Don't hate your physical appearance. Trust me. Wait till you're out of high school and stuff, because everyone looks like shit in high school. I won't look at my old pictures, man. It is cringy as fuck. I don't look good. Oh, look at me now, baby. I want you to see this. This bod, dog. Fucking rock hard muscle. It's whatever. Ain't nothing but a thing. You can change your appearance. You will look better the more you age, until you start hitting 40s, 50s, and 60s, and then you start going downhill a little bit. But I mean, at that point, you don't really give a fuck. I'm gonna be honest with you. When you start getting 50s and 60s, you probably just don't give a fuck at that point. I know I won't. But there's so much you can do. You don't need to hate yourself. You just need to work on yourself. Focus on yourself. Work on yourself. Get that money. Work that body. get it to what you like to see, and then worry about anything else. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to kill someone.
And who she was, and she was
Pinocchio. I saw that one. Is that how you spell Pinocchio? That was like a longer word. However you spell it. I don't think that's how you spell Pinocchio. I'm pretty sure there's 2 C's in there, isn't there?
obsessed with the girl she used to babysit, Rachel Barber. Rachel was this.
I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously way too young, but like, definitely no blemishes, no bad skin, good hair. Gonna grow up to be a very beautiful woman. I could see that.
Beautiful, perfect person that Caroline wished she could be. And so one day, Caroline decided she would just stop being Caroline and would literally become Rachel. And to do that, she
killed Rachel and got the hair dye and everything to try to start impersonating Rachel. Was she gonna show up and be like, "Hey, I'm home, sorry"? Was that the plan?
would kill Rachel and assume her identity. The secret job, the psychology study that Caroline offered Rachel, was a very intentional trap. She knew Rachel wanted money for things like those blue shoes, and she knew Rachel would trust Caroline. Caroline was her babysitter.
Let me look here. What? I mean, I don't know what the rest of her body looks like, if I'm gonna be honest with you. But, like, I mean, she ain't got no line back her shoulders or anything. Like, she ain't got no double chin going on. A little round, sure. A lot of things you can do about that. Ears aren't too big. Nose is fine. Maybe, like, a little bit on the large side. Like, nice lips, good eyes, eyebrows, hair's fine. Like, no blemishes or pimples or anything. Like, there is nothing wrong with you. Like, you're decently attractive. You're gonna find somebody. I don't know what the fuck your problem be, Caroline. Like, I think it's just straight up mental illness, man. Just poor self. I don't know. Self-image probably brought on, poor self-image brought on from the mental illness. But like, I think that's just straight up mental illness. There's nothing wrong with what I can see. What the fuck's wrong with you, man?
And so Rachel would have no problem going into Caroline's apartment alone at night to get the money. Caroline planned to murder Rachel and stage it so it looked like Rachel had run away, and then afterwards, Caroline planned to lose 45 pounds and then get a nose job so she would look more like Rachel.
You could just do those things. You don't have to kill someone first. Like as I was saying, if you don't like your appearance, you can work on it. I don't know if I would recommend a nose job because there wasn't really anything wrong with her nose at all. Like Pinocchio doesn't even come close, dog. Like, it was very well positioned. Like, you can just go to the, if you don't like your weight, you can just go to the fucking gym and lose 45 pounds. You don't gotta kill someone first, man.
And then to complete her transformation, Caroline would legally change her name to Rachel Barber. In November of 2000,
Why?
Caroline Robertson pleaded guilty to murdering Rachel Barber and was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Someone with a big old pointed nose. I mean, I couldn't see her from the side. Maybe she has a bit of a pointed nose. Honestly, I don't see that as. Actually, if I'm gonna be honest with you, many guys that I know don't really give a fuck what your nose looks like. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I know I don't. I don't know. I like imperfections. I think they're cute. So, like, I've seen people that got a little bit of a kind of a point nose thing going on. I don't know. I'm not like, dude, that's hot, but like, I'm not like, oh, that's not attractive. Like, Pinocchio over here. Like, no, I think it's cute. Ain't nothing wrong with the way you are, man. There's gonna be people that are gonna find you attractive. You need to stop fucking obsessing over this shit, people. Like, there's a lot you can do to improve. You can go get facials and stuff if you got, there's professional people that I go to do facials that know, like, the body inside it, like this, like they could just tell by looking and feeling what part of my skin is oily and what part of my skin is dry and whatnot, and they work on it. Like, there's so much you can do. Don't worry about it.
In January of 2015, Caroline was released after only serving 15 of those 20 years.
That's fair enough.
In the years after Rachel's death, Rachel's mother, Elizabeth, would write a book about the experience.
His parents and murder. I mean, honestly, there does seem to be. There was. I'm just still saying there's some evil in those eyes. I'm just saying, like, there's something dark in there.
Called The Perfect Victim, which would later be adapted into a major movie that starred some of Australia's.
Huh. She hated her own life, so she took someone else's. Shocking true story. I would like to see that. But I'm just wondering if they perfectly depict how they went to the police officers and they are like, yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. And I would love to hear in any part of the story if they were sued for negligence. Not that it would have helped. Seems like she was instantly dead that day, so they would not have been able to get there in time in general. Still being, 6, 7, 8 days closer to locating the murderer who may have fled and then tried to actually succeed in this situation. I feel like that counts for negligence. So I hope that's in the movie, because I'm actually kind of interested to see this movie. Hope that's in the movie, and I hope they got sued. All I'm saying, fuck the police.
His biggest actors and actresses. On Wednesday, March 24th, 1999, Rachel Barber's body was once again lowered into the ground, except this time she was surrounded by friends and family and people who loved her. Over 850 people attended Rachel's funeral. They brought letters and poems and toys, which were all buried with Rachel, as were the blue shoes that Rachel so wanted.
Oh, that one was I was like so hard. I was like so heart touching right there. That almost made me tear up for a second. That's so sweet. Like, if they had the shoes, why do we not have a real photo of the shoes? I hope that's close enough. But like, oh, someone actually went and bought the shoes and buried it with. That's so sweet. Oh my god.
That she planned to buy with the $100 Caroline had promised her. So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already.
Alright. So there's some lessons we can learn from today. Let's start from the one as they arise and what have you. Excuse me. I mean, one lesson we can learn is people don't let phobias control your life. It seems like Rachel was doing really well, despite these phobias and what have you. So like, fears and stuff, you can work on overcoming them or finding ways around them and stuff, so don't let them control your life. Never let fear ever control your life and what you do. Second off, I really hope that there's police officers that watch Mr. Ballen's stories. I doubt it would be the weirdest thing ever if a police officer stumbled upon my stuff, but you never know. So I'm not going to ask them here personally. I'm just hoping that they watch a bunch of Mr. B stories and think to themselves, damn, man, if only these cops would have done something. You know what? I'm not going to be that cop. I don't care how little of a story, I'm going to fight for it. Like, someone comes in like, oh, and then all my other peers are like, oh, I probably just ran away, whatever. We'll check into it if they're gone for a week. Be like, one person be like, no, this stuff happens all the time. We got to take every single notice seriously. I hope there's cops out there that actually do something. That watch Mr. Ballen stories and be like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be the best damn cop I can be. I really hope that there is. The lesson we can learn all the other police officers here is please just do your fucking job. I know you got a lot on your plate and you got a lot of stuff that you got to deal with, and so just some teenager probably running away is probably like, I got so much other stuff I have to worry about, but you have to take every job Seriously. Something that comes your way, you have to take it seriously. Because you never know. You really never know. So, like, officers, other police, do your job. Next up, another one we could take from this is people. Like, I'm sure this goes farther than just self-image issues. I'm sure this one's like very much mental illness. Like, oh, I hate myself so much, I want to be you. Like, that's definitely delving more into mental illness. So I don't think. I think she was just the person that she thought was so attractive that's who I want to be. I think it had nothing to do with her own personal image issues or stuff. It was just some crazy, like, I want to wear your skin shit, you know. So I'm sure it's a little bit different, but still, from that, we can take this away that if there's anyone out there that truly just hates themselves because of the way they look and, you know, and you know, how they feel in their own skin, there's so much that you can do about that. Don't take your own life. Don't take someone else's life. Don't tank your life by just, like, by going into wild depression or letting it control you to where you just don't do the stuff you want to do. Like, never let anything or anyone control the way you feel or think about yourself, even yourself. Because there's so much you can do about it. And, like, you know, this is talking a little bit from experience here, you know. I haven't always been the I don't know if I'm gonna get the quote right. No, because the word I'm thinking at the end is not right. I'm trying to think of a quote from something in Philadelphia. It's muscle bound something. I haven't always been this muscled up, sexy hunk machine that you see before you. Okay. I too have had self-image issues. As I'm sure everyone has at some point in their life, especially teenage years. They're not very nice to you. You know what I mean? I never thought I was very attractive back in high school, and a little bit afterwards. And after college and whatnot, I was married and what have you. I was getting, I mean, not overweight, but I was getting a bit of a belly. Belly was building up. I was good 210, some pounds and whatnot. And then after I got divorced and whatnot, I was like, you know what? I don't like the body that I see. I'm gonna do something about it. Immediately hit the gym, started working out 3 to 4 days a week, started fucking going hard because I was like, I need to work on myself, and I did. And then I got the body I wanted, switched up my hair, worked on my facial appearances and stuff, and now I like them. I'm not like ripping out like fucking jacked muscles or anything like that, but I got good definition. Like, it's hard to see from this angle, from this one up, but I really like my shoulders. I got a big chunk of muscle here that shows out, like kind of like Brock Lesnar, but, you know, like not like you know what I mean, but like that muscle is actually visible on my shoulders. Like, my shoulder blades and my back are actually pretty decently toned. I got some muscle showing on my arms and stuff, like flat chest and, you know, like very firm, solid pecs. Like, I'm happy with my body. I like the way I look, and I worked for that. I was not happy with the way I looked. I said, I'm going to change that, and I did something about it. And now I'm working on the mental game. I go out, I take myself on dinner dates, I get myself massages, deep tissue massages, relaxation massages, I get facials, I get pedicures. If I want to go out to fucking Bullwinkles and go bowling or just play arcade games and stuff, I do it. You gotta take care of yourself. If you don't like something, change it. There's no reason to take it out on yourself. There's no reason to take it out on someone else. Take control of your life. Become what you want to see. That's the only advice I can give you. So, thank you all so very much for joining me here today. I need to go to bed soon. I might check out that Mr. Ballen video first, though. From Ouija Mac. I might do it. So, thank you all for joining me here. And I will see you